Hi guys. Resume. All right. So I'll call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday, December 7th, 11 a.m. for the rights of public access. Thank you everybody for meeting again so soon. So let me pull up the agenda. All right, so we'll approve the minutes and then we'll go over Heron Point Road and then the puddle before the bridge. And then we'll discuss cataloging the ways to the water and then sea level rise. And that's about it. Any requests or comments? Okay. So the minutes, I thought they looked great. Does anybody have any revisions?
Yes. Let's see, it's in 6, the first bullet, protecting the rights to public to fish, towel, and navigate. Is that actually supposed to be towel?
Oh, go check that. Probably not. Let me just pull up my documents here.
I mean,
Okay.
they should be able
Yeah,
to
that
tell
just gave
if they
a spelling.
want.
Where are we going? Sorry, I just put those to, just added that in this morning, so. Oh, towel. Oh, yes. That sounds like fun. And I'll add a period there too. Okay, great. Anything else?
So how is that going to be corrected? Just take out the word towel?
Foul.
Foul. Okay.
They were super helpful for me since I wasn't there, so thank you.
Great.
And
Yeah,
I did
summarize the things that we talked about there, so I'm sure that's not everything, but just some of the things.
Okay. I read that John said he had a meeting with Mark Borelli. Is that correct? Or, I mean, I had spoke to Mark Borelli, but I'm curious if that was an error in the minutes or if John had actually spoken.
I was trying to reference your meeting with the
Okay.
fact that you called Mark.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see, is that an adjustment there? Let me see where I was. So I can just put John Reel referenced a conversation. Conversation that Melissa Yao had with Mark Borelli.
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I've added those corrections. Do you want me to resend those out?
Sure, maybe when you get them posted. I move that we approve the minutes from November 30th with the corrections that Sonia has added.
Second,
Steve says aye, Barbara says aye, Sonia?
Aye.
Aye, John, aye, Melissa, aye. Vote passes. All right, Lieutenant Island Heron Point Road. So I spoke with both Ryan and Charlie, and they have their hands full with financial issues, and they felt it would be useful for us to maybe request the surveyor and re-explain the need, especially given the discrepancies between the satellite maps and the lack of consensus among the select board about whether or not it was appropriate. Does anybody have comments on that?
Right. Do we?
Go ahead, Barbara.
Do we have a budget, or does the town have a budget for the survey? Do we know?
It's not clear. I have heard that they have no money to do it right now. Out of, I mean, I'm not partial to exactly what money is where, but I
Okay.
think it sounds like they might be able to do something.
Okay,
I'm not sure where it's going to come from.
okay. But we don't have to worry. I mean, if he said that we should get the survey, then it's okay to go ahead, I guess.
Well, so there'll be a difference between requesting that we go ahead and get the survey or just requesting that it be surveyed.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Got
I'm
it.
not sure what they're going to want to do if we
Okay.
go ahead and get it, or if we just request that it
Got
be
it.
surveyed, but we can ask for either. And I also think that it would be important for us, like, as a first step to establish that we will be asking for these kinds of things in the future, and that we
Mhm.
do need a budget.
Right.
But
I agree.
When I was working on the Mayo Creek project, we needed some basic surveying done also. It cost about $1,000. And
Mhm.
somewhere I have in my files the name and contact of the surveyor who took the place from Slade's, who took over their business.
is it outermost?
That sounds familiar, but
Okay.
I have to look back in my file
Mhm.
to be sure. So I think what we should do is send a message to Charlie, copy Ryan, and say we need this surveying done. And we would go to outermost, if that's correct, for a quote.
Yeah. So I think
I think we could get the quote. I think Charlie and Ryan are pretty busy with other stuff.
yeah, that's what Charlie said. Is he asked that we maybe get a quote, and he recommended outermost. So
Okay.
I did give them a call,
Okay.
but to have the request come from our committee, I think we should vote on that. So they'll get back to us. But what is everybody in agreement? Should we take a vote?
Sure, I move that we request a survey of Heron Point Road, and it be submitted to the select board.
I
So
second.
And roll call vote. Steve? John? Barbara?
Aye.
And Sonia?
Aye.
And Melissa, aye. Vote passes. Thank you, everybody.
I think these sorts of things will come up more and more regularly. So I like the idea of our having a budget. And I would like to have that put on the agenda for our next meeting so we could actually discuss a formal request through the Board of Selectmen and Charlie to have that done. I know the town is hard up for money, but 2,000 or 3,000 shouldn't break the bank. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But-
think it would really grease the wheels for everything that we do. We wait
Yeah.
so long to
Right.
for other
Yeah.
people.
So we should make the request. We ought to be thinking about what sort of things we would spend it on. Surveying is one of them, but
Yeah.
some other things as well.
Sonia, did you have a comment?
Yes, didn't we make that request in the spring? Remember, Melissa
Yeah.
had to go to the Board of Selectmen meeting to actually make the actual request. Like we had discussed the budget, let's see, a few meetings. I think it was January, February. I finally got through the town administrator and you actually attended the meeting. And if I remember correctly, they weren't going to give us a budget, but they said there were other means for us to get the funds.
Yeah,
And what was
the
that?
town administrator had I can't remember the name of the funds, but some kind of budget for these kinds of things. And he had said that while he wasn't going to give us an annual budget, that we could use those funds if we requested a surveyor at any point. But that changed recently because I guess they need all of the funds for something else now. So I don't know right now where they'll find the money, but maybe in the future it's something that we should ask again for.
I still would like to see it on our agenda for the next meeting, and maybe you could, Son, you could pull up what we actually said or to the Board of Selectmen or wrote to them. So we know we'd start off further down the road.
Right, yeah, I've got that in my files here somewhere.
All right, great.
Yeah, and this quote from Outermost will hopefully give us a better idea of how much surveying will cost.
Yeah.
So this is good. Thank you, guys. All right, so the puddle. I read the minutes to figure out what we talked about. I'm still waiting to hear back from Melissa Lowe. Has anybody communicated with the Audubon? No. Okay. I was thinking, it's been some time. I'm wondering if maybe we send them a letter, just reiterating the importance of the issue and maybe having the support of SAB and the Shellfish Department and laying out anything that we've learned. I think I haven't yet shared with them my conversation with Mark Borelli, but it may be helpful to get that on paper.
Do you think it would be useful to have a site visit with Mark if he's could arrange that?
That's a good idea. Like a committee site visit, or
Just one or two of us and Mark, and then report back.
Okay.
And if it's just one or two of us, we don't have to post it. We just report back.
The other
Alright.
person who had requested a meeting, a site meeting was John Sigia from Shellfish Advisory. So he wanted some.
Tom Sigia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, I imagine at some point this month, he had said after the meeting, like the following week, but I haven't heard back. So I'll check in with him too, but maybe that's something that he could be included on.
that's a really good idea. What if you, me, Tom, and Mark go visit?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I live close by there, so I don't mind going there anytime.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Should we do a vote, or is that just, yeah, that sounds good.
I move we approve Melissa's brilliant suggestion.
Okay, I'll second.
Steve,
Wait,
I.
Steve, you're muted. Were you saying something?
Still move. Oh, go ahead.
Does anybody know how the person who owns the property alongside the puddle views people driving in front of his house? And what I'm leading towards is, would it be possible to have a right of way on that property, that part of the property that's right alongside the puddle on his property, his or her, and we use it to walk there, so we don't have to walk through the puddle. Is that possible to be able to get the right of way on that for vehicles? Practical?
I have heard that he does not like that people drive there.
Okay,
But
that's what I
I'm
figured.
thinking. Yeah.
Forget I said that then.
But if I'm
We
not,
gotta-
he's not the only one with say on passage of that road, right? I mean, the other abutters
Yeah.
to that road are Audubon, and if Audubon are fine with people using it, then I don't see where there's a problem there.
It's totally in the Audubon's, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so does everybody think, I mean, we'll have the site visit But if possible, do you think we should send a letter to Audubon and maybe put on paper what we're trying to say, since we haven't had the opportunity to get a conversation? Or do you think we should just wait?
Um,
I'd like to, I'd like to,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you're first.
No, when I had my meeting with Shellfish Advisory, they said they were on board to sign any letter we needed. So I guess at this point, in terms of a letter, are we thinking, you know, we could either go the route of the letter to Audubon. You know, they did show up to the Shellfish Advisory and, you know, they basically expressed support to fix it. But, you know, their limitations obviously being budget wise, you know, they're not going to be willing to do much more than a fill, whether it be gravel or sand or something like that. So I suppose another way we can think about it is, should we, you know, we had started a letter before for conservation. Should we kind of clean that letter up and then forward that to Audubon and see if they're willing to sign it? Is that another way to go about it? Or should we start with just still trying to get direct communication with Audubon? Because it's not like we haven't gotten any communication, we just haven't had a meeting. Right, we've had a few emails and Melissa did show up at that meeting. You know, and that's a recorded meeting. So, I mean, if anyone was interested, you could see, but she did, you know, state that Audubon was willing to fix the hole. They just don't have many options in terms of their budget. So, you know, one way it could be to go about this is to kind of finalize that letter for conservation and pass it by Audubon and see if they approve, or we can continue trying to go through Audubon first.
But are we telling Audubon what we, you know, what our position is? Because, you know, they're the owners and we're encouraging them to do something.
Yeah, we just had a list of our concerns, you know, that Melissa sent forward before we had our site meeting, that was just basically outlining the reasons why we'd like to see it get repaired, correct? Like who uses it, why it's a problem, that sort of thing. So all we're really looking for at that point is just a approval, I think, from Audubon that they, you know, would like to see it fixed. You know, the communication that we had with them seemed to be from Ian as well as Melissa that they can fill it.
Mhm.
I think Ian suggested as well that maybe we even pass that, you know, the same proposition. Maybe conservation could review that same fill that he suggested in the first place and, you know, reconsider. But yeah, I suppose we're just trying to get, I would think, conservation to reconsider or
Okay.
give us some input in terms of what would be acceptable solutions.
I think sorry, John, go ahead.
I was gonna, go ahead, you make your point, then I'll make mine.
I watched the SAB meeting and it sounded like they have no plans to move forward.
Oh.
She said they have no plans to come back to Conservation Commission to request anything, and they're just exploring their options, which I think a number of us have been looking into other people's opinions and other options. But I feel like the next step would be to come together and discuss what they are, unless Audubon wants to go ahead without us and pursue their own plan. But if they have no plans to move forward, I thought it would be useful for us to nudge them a little with a letter explaining, you know, what we've learned and why we think this is important, with the support of SAB and Shellfish Department.
Yeah.
But go ahead, John.
I thought before we wrote again to Audubon, two things. One is see if you can have this site visit with Mark Borelli. The other, it might help if we could find a source of at least some of the money. And I was wondering if anyone knows the people at SPAT well enough that we could go to them and say, gee, if we had 1,000 or 2,000, this might facilitate the process.
Yeah, I can try to contact them. I don't know you know, what their funds look like
But
and whether.
I mean, the order is the site visit, which
Mhm.
might give us some idea of the cost, then SPAT, then go to Audubon, and we would come with a more definite plan and offer to help with the funding.
Yeah, I've wondered that if there's any way, you know, it seems like their concern is funding, which is understandable. I mean, Audubon lost a lot of revenue through the pandemic. So, you know, maybe there's a way we can find partial funding for the solution. But yeah, I'm not sure if SPAT would get involved in that or who. I can talk to Nancy as well and see where we can look for that assistance. But I can kind of call around, see what I can do.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and let's see.
All right, so we'll have the site visit and we'll ask around for funds to help. And then hopefully some time has passed and maybe we'll have some communication. And if not, then we can come together with a letter.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Game
Sounds
plan. Sounds good. Can we wrap up the puddle or does anybody have last thoughts? All
We
right,
should wrap up the puddle.
sounds good.
You wouldn't have a problem.
All right, so cataloging the ways to the water. I sent out an email with an Excel spreadsheet that I thought would be useful to record all of the information that we might want to think about or to document for all of these places, and then all of the resources that we have. And John did a really good job of adding to Echeveria's work. So I just wanted to discuss maybe put some form to what we might be thinking of making. Does anybody have any comments?
I think it's a great first step.
Mhm.
I mean, I printed it and it winds up being, the type winds up being a little small on 8.5 by 11.
Mhm.
I'll see if I can fix that. I did think, you know, if this is the direction we want to go, I mean, in my mind, I feel like it would be useful to have a table, a map, and kind of like Echeveria's work, a description of each location, kind of, you know, specific information that might be helpful.
Mhm.
But that's a lot of work, so I don't know what you guys want to do.
I agree it's a lot of work, but I think that's kind of part of our mission is to help publicize this information to the public. So even if it, you know, takes a while and work, it's something that's worth our while.
What are the logistics of doing that?
Um,
You've started it, Melissa. Can we just give you ideas or updated data or whatever and have you maintain a spreadsheet?
Well, if we want to use it, I was thinking that we could split up the locations and maybe fill in the blanks. And maybe as you like, it's just like a field trip kind of thing for each person and get to know the location better. And as you figure it out, you could like add notes and to figure out what you'd want to say about the descriptor for the location.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. A little divide and conquer. That way it's not too much work on one person. And
mhm.
I feel like, you know, you've got one or two people doing all the work. You're
Right.
likely to kind of skim through some things, right? Because it's a lot to do. Whereas, you know, if one person focuses on just a few
Right.
things, get more detail out of it.
I think we talked about this last week, but does this include freshwater too? Or ways to the waters that mean exclusively, you know, to,
The last section is ponds.
Hope it includes.
oh, okay,
fresh-
sorry, I
hope
didn't
it
see,
includes the
Yeah.
pond.
I missed that, sorry.
I hope it includes.
All right, well, I volunteer for some ponds just because there's, you know, people on the committee so much more knowledgeable about other places, or happy to get, you know, to learn more about, you know, the tidal areas as you you know, whatever would be helpful to the group.
And I
Okay,
volunteer to take the first two sections, the Herring River Estuary and the town beaches.
Barbara, if you're interested in ponds, the Natural Resource Advisory Board is looking at preparing a ponds plan.
Okay,
Because we're concerned about the long-term degradation of water quality there.
okay,
So we'll be holding a meeting sometime about a week from now.
okay,
I will try to remember to, you can sit in.
okay,
We have two of the members from the NRAB live on the ponds. Herb Gestalter lives on Gull Pond and Laura Hewitt lives on Long. So we've got a pretty active group there.
okay. I'll look for the date on the town calendar, just so I have it in my calendar.
Good. Be toward the end of next week.
Okay,
If I may, I took the word cataloging a little differently, and I started to think to myself, we have talked about a number of priorities, particularly with Nancy, and if I may, I made a little list, and I just like to run through it because just to be sure we're agreed on the actions for things that we've already talked about.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
the first one is Fisherman's Landing, by which I mean that little landing just to the southwest of the dike over the Herring River. The road is a mess. And so I thought I would take responsibility to talk to a few people and see what could be done about that. It may be that road is going to get affected by the Herring River Restoration Project, so it doesn't make sense to do it now, and that's one of the things to find out. The sand pullout, that's that high parking area along Chequesset Neck Road. I had a note to myself that Nancy Chavetta was trying to arrange an alternative to that. Is she back in the office now?
I don't believe so. Her surgery was maybe a week or two ago. I think it takes like a month or two to.
Oh, no fun at all. Okay.
Jordan is there though, and she said she couldn't make the meeting, but she wants to be involved in this, and said she was more than happy to help fill in the blanks because she does all of these, checks with shell fishermen at the sites.
So if I sent her an email just asking where we are on that, or it would not be inappropriate.
No, Nancy's still available. She's just, probably resting.
For her, that's fair enough. Something which is high up on my list, and it was also high up on Irene Payne's list, is the South Cove of Chipmans. And that would be an entirely new access. Do we all have a copy of Irene Payne's video?
Mhm.
Was it circulated?
It may have been before you
Okay,
came on the committee.
You can watch it on YouTube.
Okay, I'll find it.
Well, Waste the Water, what was the title of it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
What is it?
Wellfleet's Ways to the Water or something to that.
Okay,
Irene Payne. It'll come up and the name alone, I think will make it come.
I think that would be an interesting subject to get into. There may be an opportunity there with a little digging, so to speak.
okay,
Omaha Beach, we discussed that with the select board. Actions are being planned. Fox Island, which is the south tip of Indian Neck, I had a couple of ideas which I'll explore and get back to you. Old Briar Cliff, which is on the south side of, what's the name of that peninsula? Just north of Lieutenant Island.
So that's the entrance to Logie Bay? by the
Yeah,
Grand- that's the
yeah.
Old Wharf Road,
And-
basically.
And I thought the way out to it was also in pretty bad shape. There's a meeting tomorrow night about
Low-lying roads.
low-lying roads, and I thought it'd be useful, any of us who happen to be at that meeting, to raise that road as a question.
Old Briar.
And then let's see, we're out on Lieutenant Island. I thought it would be good to talk to Bill Huss and Audubon about what's happening with Meadow Avenue and the control of the parking there. Nothing's going to happen this winter, so that would be something that would be useful to sort of flag again, maybe around March.
That's something with the Audubon as well. That would
Yeah,
be-
that's Audubon plus the Bill Huss is the head of the local landowners organization. So that was sort of my list of the specific actions that we had talked about. Is there something that we have missed, or I have missed, in terms of specific actions or priorities? The one new thing is Chipman's Cove.
And you're meaning Chipman's Cove, you're saying South Chipman's Cove. There's a bunch of access points there, and you're referring to the one that's just off of Cove Road, right?
Yeah,
There's
right.
the path there, and
But I'm
there,
particularly thinking of what was on Irene Payne's.
yeah, the driving. So you used to be able to drive
Right.
from, it looks like a driveway now, right? And drive out to that point.
Because Irene thought that there was some sort of old document that actually demonstrated that right.
Hmm.
So there may be a way forward. And that's the first thing to remind us of again.
I remember that area in the video. They had just discovered a sign put up saying it was private.
Mhm.
And that was like the beginning of the access being blocked. So at the time, it probably was possible to declare prescriptive rights, but I think after, that video was in the 90s, so I don't know what we can do
That-
today, but
That's
It's worth
prescriptive rights are very difficult under any circumstance. But I guess we're far enough along as a committee that we need to have a fairly concrete list of things we're working on and making sure that there's progress there. We've talked with the Shellfish Department, we've talked with Audubon, we've talked with the owners at Lieutenant Island, the Aggers. We just sort of have a little checklist of how things are moving along.
okay. Sounds good. These are great ideas for future meetings. So to wrap up cataloging, does anybody have any additional comments, or should we move on?
In terms of an area, just let me know what you think. Obviously, I'll probably cover.
Oh, yeah. Do we want to divide?
Barbara was talking about ponds.
Yep.
Steve, you mentioned Herring River. And what else was it you
Well, John has kind of taken part of the Iron River, taken the dike, right, John?
Fisherman-
There are several other things along the Herring River. When the new dike is completed, I know just on the northwest side, there's going to be a landing.
Mhm.
I have also contacted the seashore that there'll be a landing at Bound Island.
Oh,
And there's another possible landing on the river just where Route 6 crosses on the southwest side. There's actually a little old landing there,
Hmm.
which is never marked, but I know there's a landing because I've used it. And the seashore might be interested in also making use of that. There's actually a little parking area. Pretty overgrown now, but it wouldn't be a problem to recover it.
I'm not familiar with that area, but is that, with this restoration project, would there be more of a river there now where people can canoe and fish and that sort of thing? That access point you're talking about?
Well, the second one would probably not be that much change because the tidal flow stops at about Route 6.
Okay.
But the one on Bound Island would be almost would be restored. There'd be tides there.
There's another access point that's not on here off Snake Creek. It's the very, like, one of the fingers of the Herring River. And I don't know how detailed you guys want to get. Some of these, some of the potential ways to the water are so tiny and not very used that I wonder if maybe there's some areas that we don't add like that. Because sometimes, I mean, I treasure my secret spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should probably focus on what's widely used, generally
Yeah.
speaking, I would think, and also just because there's really only so much I'm sure we can manage.
Yeah, you're right.
Walk up, you know what I mean?
Okay, so I guess we'll just work with what's here for now. It's basically everything that the Shellfish Department has put on paper, and nothing more. So, I guess we can start with that. So, Steve's doing the Herring River and the town beaches.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, John, did you say there was areas you were going to commit to, or?
John, would you do the Herring River since you expressed interest in a couple of spots there?
Yeah.
And I can move down the list to the next two, which are
That would be the most convenient for me. I have a direct interest because we live on it.
live on the river.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so John's doing the Herring River.
I'll do town beaches and Duck Creek.
Okay. Maybe if Jordan said she was willing to help, maybe she could do the Cove since she's
that'd be
active
great.
there probably.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
there's quite a few spots there. So that's probably enough work, right?
Yeah,
Like Duck Creek.
and that leaves
Cove.
Sonia or Barbara's doing ponds. Sonia, do you know what you want to do?
You want to throw me down for like South Wellfleet or something like that?
Yeah.
Lieutenant and, Old Briarcliff, Blackfish Creek.
Old Wharf.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Termer's Cove. Can you do all of that?
I'll see what I can get to.
If it's too much, we can shuffle it to
Yeah. This is
Tiffany or Jordan.
obviously going to be a work in progress. So
Okay. And that leaves the Indian Neck. I can do Indian Neck. And then we have Ocean and Bay. Does anybody want to add to their list? I can.
I'm not sure there are any. Well, there are some issues for the ocean beaches, mostly having to do with parking, the amount of parking which is available and managing of that. But there's nothing in terms of rights. I mean, it's fairly clear, and they're all open.
I know there is some discrepancy with the beachcomber. Some people claim that the beachcomber is kind of taken over a public parking lot. I've even seen bumper stickers regarding that public access. But, you know,
Well,
that's,
that's something we should follow up on then. So be sure to put that on the list.
I
You know,
think-
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Barbara.
No, just happy to add things to my list, just, you know, if you need a volunteer for a couple more, that's fine.
You want to do the ocean?
So I'm assuming we have a little time on this, right?
Yeah, no deadline.
Okay, I'm gonna add ocean.
And I didn't necessarily think that we should just focus on areas that may need our help or you know, I just wanted to put something on paper that would be an all-inclusive, these are our ways to the water. So I thought it was useful to include everything.
Right.
and is this ultimately something that would be used on the town website?
We can talk about that. I mean, I guess we haven't quite agreed on the form we want it to take. Like I said, I thought it would be useful to have a table, a map, and some language like Echeverria did. But if you guys would prefer a different form, then we can do something different. But I would imagine it would be a public document and also probably help us to maybe address some of the conflicts of user groups.
Mhm.
We could also work with the beach department. Maybe I'll reach out to them.
It seems to me if you're going to put out a brochure for the larger public, that it probably should not include any of the smaller ones that are pretty much shellfishermen only.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose that's maybe the information we're trying to organize, right? Is like when we discussed the landings, you know, Nancy had discussed how there are certain points that she'll share with her constituents, like the shellfishing public, she'll inform them about certain access points if they have the correct license for that, right? Like commercial shellfishermen, she might point to more landings than she would a recreational person who only has a few options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, speaking of the public at large, there's a lot of access points that they don't necessarily need. But then again, I mean, those access points are still, you know, some of them, I'm sure not the private ones, right? They're shellfish access points across private property. And I'm sure those property owners are giving permission to shellfishermen and not necessarily just
To the public.
yeah, the canoe across their portion of marsh. But I would think the main goal here would be to kind of help direct the public to the places that they can use,
Yeah.
you know, for the various activities. They'd like to.
Yeah. So maybe the document that we end up publishing, you know, it's a little more refined than this, and maybe this could just be like a glossary, appendix for us to refer to, because it also identifies areas that are town landings and are not. And I think part of our work may be figuring out where we want to establish town landings. So it may help direct our work as well. Okay. Sounds good. All right, I'm gonna move on unless anybody has an objection.
Mm.
Okay, so sea level rise, since we have this list of places, I thought it would be useful to, you know, look at the map. Just gonna share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So did anybody get a chance to look at the maps that are in the email I sent?
I haven't.
So there's the Cape Cod Commission. They have this sea level rise viewer. You can increase the amount of sea level here and then see what's affected. Takes a little bit of loading,
Is
but it
that the,
highlights.
is that the National Park Service one?
I know this is the Cape Cod Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who they collaborated with, but this is what they offer. And then it shows the roads that will be affected by just this amount of sea level rise. So let's see.
What does that red circle signify there?
It's a good question.
It looks like
Um,
water inundating a house if you look at the.
It says critical facilities.
Maybe
You
it
know,
means the bridge. I don't know.
Probably the,
yeah, it
road.
probably is. That's exactly where it is.
Yeah.
So it's not very specific, but and it's not very
Mhm.
clear either. But
I don't know. The word shows a road that's purple. That means inundated, right?
yeah, that's
Okay.
true. So it's just 2 foot higher on mean high water means that
Right.
this would be inundated. I also thought, you guys can explore this. I felt like some of the more useful maps, since I had a hard time navigating this one, were from the reports on sea level rise. This one is from Waquot Bay Reserve. Let's see, it's page 9. So this is with, I guess it's federal. But there's a map here that shows you sea level rise for 2050. So in 30 years, red is, I guess, where people drive, and current mean high water is the light teal turquoise, and then blue would be a low or conservative scenario for sea level rise in 30 years, and purple would be extreme. So it's kind of interesting to see some of these maps. Let me see. This one. No. Oh, here's another. So this is the boathouse. You can see that the red is your access, the way you drive, and mean high water right now is where the turquoise, and then in 30 years it could be the blue conservatively, or it could be the purple, which is way up over the road. And of course, I'm assuming that the bridge gets inundated before this ever does. But it's just interesting to see. And then over here we have the hazard plan for the town, which is what they're working on right now because they have to do it every 5 years. So this is a 2016. You can see, we'll start with the ocean beaches. You can see the shoreline change historically, and it goes from green to red. So it's kind of small. I guess only to 2009, but you can see here how far it's moved. I don't think really there's anything that we can do there, but looking inside the harbor, you can tell the shoreline change has really been significant, especially out in Lieutenant Island. And I did feel like
Can you go out to Duck Creek on the bay?
Duck
The
Harbor?
map Does the map extend out to the, oh, there it is.
Yep. So this only goes to 2009, so it doesn't include the breach.
Yeah,
But we know
because
that there was a breach of water in here and recently.
we were walking there yesterday and it was flooded considerably at the high tide. And there was a west wind which accelerated or augmented the problem.
And that was a high tide.
Yep. So all the high tides are breaching, and it'd be very interesting next summer to see if it repairs itself.
Hmm.
One comment, Melissa. I haven't seen a more recent NOAA prediction, but the last one I saw said that the sea level rise would really take off about 2030, and you'd have an extra foot about 2040. So that, I think sort of near term, you ought to plan for see what happens with 1 foot. Keep in mind that there's something beyond it, but you may undertake some unnecessary immediate actions if you're looking at a 2 foot line.
Yeah. I mean, it'll
And
be,
John and I won't be around to care anyway. Right, John?
I haven't given up hope.
so yeah, I guess we don't really know. That's why it was interesting to see the, the conservative estimate and the extreme. This is in 30 years, but I think these maps are useful because we can see, which has had the most change, and which might be potentially more affected than others. And we can also use the Cape Cod Commission map to figure that out. But with this low-lying roads meeting happening, is it tomorrow?
Yeah, I believe it's tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Yep,
4 o'clock.
that's right.
I'm gonna try to make it. I hope you guys can too.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I've got a planning board at 5, but I can at least make the first hour. I can't remember where the link, did they circulate a link or do we have to ask them for it?
Did Ryan
email
send
it
something
around.
out? Was there an email from Ryan, I think? Maybe just check.
Yeah,
those.
he said to reach out to Hillary, which I did, and she
Okay.
sent me the link.
All right, I'll do that.
I'll-
Thank
I'll
you.
forward it around.
Yep, now I remember Ryan's email now.
So, these maps are useful to think about where we can focus our efforts, but I think the larger conversation really is that what do we do about this as an access committee? And I think personally think it's important to have short-term solutions as well as long-term solutions, and some of the discussions we've had with other people show that it's not necessarily the way that other people think. Does anybody have any comments?
I agree with that point, Melissa. You're gonna have to do some things within the next 10 years, and then
Right.
probably the major projects are then 20 years out. But we've got to get started on them.
Yeah. Does anybody, sorry, Steve, were you going to say something?
I'm not going to be able to make that meeting tomorrow. And I also have a question. Can I get this final Wellfleet hazard plan that you're showing us somewhere?
Yeah, I'll re-forward the email that I sent out before.
I don't think, was it on there?
It was an email with the subject sea level rise.
Oh, okay. Then I'll find it.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't read that email. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so you can do some digging and figure out which areas, are more affected than others. I mean, what's interesting too here is this is Omaha. I mean, we're trying to secure rights here. but it's pretty clear that, I mean, this is mean high water, so you don't know what's really happening at low tide, which is when you need to get out there. But pretty clear that we're going to need alternative access whether or not we get it here. So looking down here, you know, you can see this is much better off. This is much less affected. It has the buffer of the marsh. And then here you can see Indian Neck Road, or whatever it's called, Nauset Road. It seems like, what is it? It goes from green to red. So that's a little confusing. But it looks like maybe there's marsh secretion here. I bet that may have happened. Anyway, you guys can look into it on your own time. I won't waste your time, but I think, you know, these are useful maps to figure out where we need to prioritize low roads. So,
Would Old Pier Road be a consideration as well? Have we looked at that? Right, because that's
yeah,
right along Marsh there.
yeah, definitely. Interesting. There used to be a dock here.
Here, hence the name of the road.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
Probably the old pier.
But you know, that's like a primary access point currently for fishing in Chipman's Cove. So you know, that just goes to show why securing access in other positions, South Chipman's, you know, on the west side, and that's all very important in the future potentially, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you know, there's the access through Richmond Lane. You know, that's across private property. You know, if that were to change, that would definitely be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky we have all of these access points here. It's probably why we haven't focused too much on the cove. But yeah, and then this map to figure out the low-lying roads is useful. So, all right.
I mean, let's be clear that I think this is an important subject for the committee. It's no use having a right of public access if it's underwater. So we need to be thinking about either preservation or alternatives as we go along. So that's fully appropriate.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think that's clear to communicate to people too, because I don't think that that's universally agreed upon. All right. Does anybody have any other comments?
I'll try to make the meeting tomorrow. That should be educational.
Is it going to be recorded?
Don't know. I assume it would be.
It's a public meeting.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see what they say. And before we adjourn, does anyone have an idea for, oh, sorry. Anybody have an idea for the next meeting? Who wants to chair?
I guess it's about my turn, or John, you can do it. Barbara, you haven't done one yet, have
I
you?
have not. If you guys think I'm ready, I'm happy to do it. I may, you know, lean on people a little bit just to make sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, but I'll do it.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank you.
And does that, is part of chairing the meeting, communicating with town hall and making sure that, you know, they have it on the calendar and all of that? Is that part of chairing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can email Rebecca Eldridge and Jennifer Congle to post the meeting.
Okay. Did we figure out when our next meeting is?
Oh, yeah.
Probably roughly a month.
Do we want it to be in January?
I would say yes.
Um,
Well, not the first week in January. Two comments about January. First of all, not the first week. And second, no meetings before 9 o'clock. Because we'll be in Tucson and I don't really want to drag myself out of bed early every morning.
No, I'm flexible. I don't mind it, later for us.
That seems to be the process we're following, which is fine. I'm just hoping.
Yeah, I'm always good with the middle of the day because my kids are in school.
There you go. We all have priorities.
They're very difficult for me to attend meetings.
I know. I'm just at work, that's all. So. It's okay.
All right,
think
well,
we're-
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll have a look at Clyde's and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think we're ready to adjourn, so I'll make a move that we do that.
But wait, don't we want to set a meeting date so I can request that it get on the calendar for the town?
Sure. So on the 13th of January, is that a good week for you guys?
And what's the tide?
It's a 2:51 p.m. tide. It's a 1:0.
Yeah, so like a late morning, midday.
Yeah, or we could do
Could
like
you
the
do the
9th.
12th? Could you do the 12th instead?
Yeah, I can.
So I think we have some friends coming to visit us on the 13th.
So the tide's at 1:56 p.m. It's a 1:1. So like a 10 a.m. or an 11 a.m. should be okay.
That's fine.
So it's 11 a.m. on the 12th?
That work for everybody? It's good for me.
Great.
I was-
Thanks
Maybe
for-
either 10 or-
Yeah, thanks for settling that now. It just means I don't have to chase like follow-up emails with everybody, so
Yeah.
it just makes it easier. Okay, I'll get it on the town calendar.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Melissa, for chairing.
And thank you for all the work you've done.
Yes, exactly.
All right, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Vote Melissa, aye.
Barbara, I.
Sonia,
Steve,
aye.
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 All right. Vote passes. Bye, everybody.
I.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Interesting meeting.
Yeah.